Thank you very much for having me today and coming to listen to my talk. As I was introduced, I'm a current PhD candidate at the University of Sydney, Australia. And just before I present my work, I would also like to acknowledge my two funding bodies, Illawarra Prime Alpaca and the Australian Government Rural Industries Research and Development Corporation, RIDIC. I'd also like to acknowledge my two supervisors, Dr. Dave Hopkins from the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries and Dr. Russell Bush from the University of Sydney. So today I'd like to present to you my first study, an investigation into carcass traits and saleable meat yield of Australian alpacas. I know this is a little bit different to the common livestock species being presented here this week, so I thought I'd give you a little bit of background of alpacas in Australia. They were first imported into Australia in 1989, and they are traditionally used for their high-quality fibre. Over the past 25 years, there's been an increasing interest and growth within the industry within Australia, and currently the national alpaca herd stands at 400,000 animals. This is a six-fold increase in the numbers of registered alpaca animals as well, and it is estimated that the national flock will reach the 1 million animal mark within the next 6 years. However, for sustainable growth of this traditional cottage industry, which is now reaching commercialisation, the utilisation of the whole animal will be intrinsically important. So looking at a dual-purpose animal similar to what has happened in the past with sheep. Diversifying into the markets of meat and hides is how this will become established, and it will also provide a viable economic alternative for animals that are not suited for fibre production. However, majority of these animals and the lack of scientific literature available on alpaca meat internationally. Between alpacas and llamas, llamas are generally more suited to carcass characteristics as they have a larger frame, and most studies have indicated have been conducted in South America. However, Australia has a very small proportion of llamas within the country, and therefore alpacas and benchmarking figures need to be indicated and researched to fill this knowledge gap. So most production traits are well established within sheep and cattle, however very little scientific information is available on alpacas. So my study was looking to investigate the relationships between slaughter age and gender on carcass characteristics and yield traits to help provide information for producers and processors. The experimental design consisted of 50 Hakaya alpacas with 3 different age groups ranging from 18, 24 and 36 months at slaughter, as well as 2 genders including females and castrated males. They were grazed on coastal pastures on the south coast of New South Wales, Australia for 4 months with a live weight recorded prior to lairage to allow for dressing percentages to be calculated. They were also slaughtered in 2 groups 2 weeks apart at a commercial mixed species abattoir. Immediately after extenuation, animals were immobilised. They were then dressed with the neck being removed and the carcass was split in half. Each side of the neck was then weighed and the neck was then weighed to produce a hot carcass weight prior to chilling. The carcass length was also measured within the chillers. This was taken from the first rib through to the pelvis. A cold carcass weight was measured after 24 hours and a yield analysis was conducted on the right side of each carcass. Cuts were prepared in accordance with the AusMeat sheep specifications, and any adjustments were noted within the methodology of the paper that you'll find in your proceedings. Each cut was also weighed before and after trimming at each stage, so this allowed for a total fat, bone and trim from each primal section to be conducted. 4 saleable meat yield combinations were created based on commercial primal endpoints with different rack and hind leg combinations. All combinations included a neck, a deboned forequarter, a foreshank, a tenderloin, an eye of short loin, and spare ribs. Combination A also included a French rat cap-on plus a leg chump-on. Combination B included a French rat cap-on, a deboned hind leg minus the rump. Combination C included a French rat cap-off and a leg chump-on, as well as combination D, which was the furthest endpoints, which included a French rat cap-off plus a deboned hind leg minus the rump. The yield data was then doubled to reflect a whole carcass and converted into a percentage of whole carcass weight for analysis to remove the live weight variation that may impact on this dataset. The tracing of the eye muscle was also conducted on the loin at the 12th and 13th rib. The area was measured on acetate paper to create an eye muscle area, which was then analysed. Statistics for this whole paper were conducted using linear mixed models in GenStat 14th edition. Hot and cold carcass weights had significant impacts on age, with 18-month-old animals having significantly lower carcass weights than 24 and 36 months. This is as to be expected, but however has not been documented within our packers in Australia before. Similarly, carcass length showed that younger animals had shorter carcasses as to also to be expected, with increase with age found to be significant as animals go from 18 to 24 and then 36 months. However, there was no difference detected between dressing percentages between the 6 treatments. The percentage of whole carcass trim showed that there was a significant age comparison, with 18-month-old animals having significantly less trim than 36-month-old animals. Whole carcass trim, when you're looking at it at a gender perspective, females had a higher proportion of trim than males. However, there was no age by gender interaction found. Looking at a whole carcass bone, you can see that 18-month-old animals had significantly higher proportion of bone density within the carcass compared to 24 and 36-month animals, which again would be as expected. However, this has not previously been documented before. When looking at whole carcass fat, it's interesting to note that our packers are exceptionally lean carcasses, lean animals, and produce very lean carcasses. However, 36-month-old females have exceptionally and significantly higher deposits of fat within their carcass. And looking at the age interaction, you can also see that 18, 24, and 36-month-old animals have an increase as age increases as well. Looking at saleable meat yield and the 4 different combinations, you can see that combinations A and C, which had the least amount of trimming conducted, had the highest amount of saleable meat yield combinations, whereas combination B and D, which B and D, which contained the deboned hind leg within the combinations, had a lower percentage of saleable meat yield per carcass weight. And this can be explained through the amount of saleable meat yield trim seen on both combinations B and D, which were significantly higher, as well as the higher proportion of saleable meat yield bone seen in both of these combinations. If I wanted to look and break it down onto an age by gender scale, you can see here that in females, the percentage of cold carcass weight for combination D decreases with females, and this is taken into account because of the increase in trim and bone percentage seen across the ages. Whereas in males, there is an increase in saleable meat yield, which is due to the increase in muscle mass within the carcass. This data here is exceptionally important for producers as well as processors in trying to find markets for our packer meat production and for our packer meat sales within Australia. So just very quickly and in conclusion, I'd like to say that male carcasses had higher saleable meat yield values and reduced levels of trim, indicating that they had preferred carcass characteristics. Saleable meat yield data also indicated that increased yield endpoints can increase the percentage of bone, trim, and fat within the carcass. However, further investigation is always needed, especially into a newly established industry, and therefore the cost of producing value-added traits, such as a French rat cap-off and yield breakdown, needs to be further investigated, as does the establishing of industry benchmarking figures that will help and process endpoints. I'd just like to say thank you again for coming to my talk, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.